everyone. Welcome to this webcast. This is the CSU Build Alliance, Building and Sustaining Diversity in the Biomedical Research Workforce. We're glad you're joining us live this morning as we come to you live from Central Station U Studio here at the office of the Chancellor. Hello, I'm Jennifer Wicks, your host here behind the scenes. I'm glad to be working on this exciting webcast production. So please let us know, what is your role on your campus? How are you joining today's session? And we also would like to know, are you aware of Build? It's going to be helpful for our presenters today and our host, Frank Gomez, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. And we appreciate your comments and questions throughout today's session. Please feel free to type those into the chat pod just over here to the left of my web camera. Throughout the session, we will be having the Q&A at the very end, so please do stand by for that. And we want to check our footprint savings so we know how much we're saving and capturing by offering this session as a virtual webcast. So let's switch over to our footprint savings pod now and take a look at what we're saving here. And first, what I'll do is send a quick note to your computer. It's a pop-up, and if you could just type in the zip code from where you're joining us, probably your campus location, and then you can type in, or dial up rather, the number of attendees in your group. So there are 3 of us here in the studio, and we'll go ahead and click on Update Map. Actually, 4 of us here, and save and close. So then we'll come back to the main screen and take a look at the CO2 that we're saving, 16,000 pounds of CO2, whether you would fly or drive to us here at the Office of the Chancellor. Also over 18,000 US dollars and over 33,000 round-trip miles. So quite a significant savings. We have over 41 logins across the system today joining this session, and more coming in as we speak. So let's begin today. I'd like to introduce our host, our moderator here, Dr. Frank A. Gomez, the Executive Director of STEMnet here at the Office of the Chancellor. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Frank.
Good morning and welcome to today's webcast. I'm Frank Gomez, the Executive Director of STEMnet, the newest affinity group of the CSU. Since arriving at the Chancellor's office in August, the question I've been asked most often is, what is STEMnet? In short, the vision of STEMnet is to continue to make the CSU a worldwide leader in increasing the pipeline, preparation, graduation, and employment of outstanding diverse STEM students. One way to accomplish this is by sharing our expertise to implement best practices for our students and faculty in pedagogy, learning, and research related to STEM fields within the CSU system. Today is one of those days, as we bring together PIs from the 3 CSU NIH-funded Building Infrastructure Leading to Diversity Build programs. These very prestigious awards consist of linked grants issued to undergraduate institutions to implement and study innovative approaches to engaging and retaining students from diverse backgrounds in biomedical research, potentially helping them on the pathway to become future contributors to the NIH-funded research enterprise. Build awards differ from other NIH-funded training grants in that they aim to achieve simultaneous impact at the student, faculty, and institutional levels. Through implementing a variety of innovative approaches to research, skill building and training, mentorship, and institutional change, the Build-funded institutions address various challenges faced by students, faculty, and institutions. In addition, by disseminating effective interventions and strategies to diversify biomedical research, Build institutions contribute to broader transformational impact at an institutional level. I want to remind the audience to use the open chat box on the screens to type in their questions. I will collect the questions in addition to the questions shared during the registration process for this webcast and moderate the Q and answer period. To put the Build program into perspective, I have my good friend Dr. Sue Rosser, who will begin our presentations. Sue, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Frank. I appreciate that introduction. I'm the Special Advisor for Research, Development, and External Partnerships at the Chancellor's Office. But when I was provost at San Francisco State, and since that time, I've continued to be on the steering committee for their Build project. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about an overview of the project. The National Institutes of Health, or as we all know them as NIH, in response to the Ginther report, launched diversity initiatives to reduce the gap between the award of undergraduate degrees and the completion of doctoral degrees for biomedical research. As you can see, there's quite a difference depending on many more students are completing undergraduate degrees than PhDs, particularly underrepresented groups. They came up with 3 interrelated approaches, and you can see that President Obama worked with the head of NIH, Francis Collins, to support these. Building infrastructure leading to diversity, that's BUILD, that we'll be focusing on today. In addition, there's a National Research Mentoring Network, NRMN, and then a Coordination and Evaluation Center to determine whether or not these different initiatives are successful. The first BUILD awards resulted in $200 million over 5 years given to 10 institutions. We're now in the second phase of BUILD, or BUILD 2. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what has happened, particularly in BUILD 1. As you can see, Francis Collins, the director of NIH, talked about the reasons for BUILD. Past efforts to diversify the workforce had had significant impact on individuals, but there was not substantial progress in expanding diversity on the larger scale, institutional change. So the BUILD program was formed to test new models of training and mentoring so that it could ultimately attract the best minds from all groups to biomedical research. And you can see Dr. Hannah Valentine, who's the inaugural NIH Officer for Scientific Workforce Diversity, but those of us in California also know her as a professor at Stanford. She talks about injecting the rigor of science into the efforts to diversify science. Several activities were implemented to solve these cross-cutting challenges. First, providing research evidence for diversity's impact on the quality and outputs of science. Second, a goal was to create evidence-based approaches to recruitment and training. Third, they wanted us to identify individual and institutional barriers to workforce diversity. And finally, the ultimate goal, of course, is to have a national strategy for eliminating barriers to career transition with scientifically based approaches for scaling and dissemination. You can see that 10 BUILD awards were given throughout the country, and this map shows where they were located. We were fortunate in the state of California to receive 3 of the 10 awards, and they were all 3 given to institutions in the CSU, San Francisco State, CSU Northridge, and CSU Long Beach. The primary goals of BUILD 2 follow on those of BUILD 1, and so there's an emphasis upon dissemination and sustainability of what has worked from BUILD 1. The dissemination is targeted at similar institutions. For example, our sister CSU institutions. We have 23 CSU campuses and 3 received bills, so there are 28 other CSU institutions. Sustainability was recognized as requiring transformation of the entire institution, not just individuals or one department. In California, a goal also was better to link the CSUs to the UCs because we thought we could increase the number of historically underrepresented students who enter advanced degree programs relevant to biomedical research careers, because a large proportion of the CSU students are underrepresented in the biomedical research careers. These are the 3 campuses, as we mentioned: Long Beach, Northridge, and San Francisco State. We're in the BUILD Alliance. And our dissemination plan involves the 3 institutions working together now in BUILD 2 to disseminate this throughout the other CSUs, and specifically right now we're working with Channel Islands, Dominguez Hills, and LA. Long Beach is working with the latter 2. Northridge with Channel Islands, and also through various parts of the Chancellor's Office, Academic Technology Services, the Institute of Teaching and Learning, the Pre-Doctoral Program, and the Chancellor's Doctoral Incentive Program. In summary, NIH has launched diversity initiatives starting in 2014, but continuing in Bill 2, to address bias in review by working systematically to enhance the diversity of the biomedical research workforce. The build sites were selected from a pool of comprehensive institutions most capable of reducing the gap between the award of undergraduate degrees and the completion of advanced degrees for biomedical research. You may be aware that this is a departure from the more traditional approach NIH took before 2014, where they mostly funded R1 institutions. As stated previously, 30% of the bill sites are in the CSU, and we formed together a CSU Build Alliance. Each site uses a multi-level approach and is testing a particular theory of change to determine what works in what context. Some practices have shown efficacy and will be shared in this webcast and of course beyond through publications and other dissemination methods. Future directions include dissemination of lessons learned and best practices to sister CSU and cultivation of UC partnerships. And now I would like to introduce my good friend, Dr. Leticia Marquez Magana, who is a professor of biology at San Francisco State and PI on our BUILD grants. Letty?
Thank you, Sue. I greatly appreciate the introduction and felt that that really laid the groundwork for the subsequent presentations. So I'll be presenting our work on building diverse teams for CSU UCSF transformation. Our focus is really on institutional transformation within SF Build, and we have partnered San Francisco State with UCSF in terms of what we are working on. As in the next slide, what you'll see is our diverse team. So our diverse team comes again from, well, first of all, it's multi-ethnic, it's multidisciplinary, as you can see by the letters behind, at the end of our names. And it's cross-institutional. It's a team that has been built on the foundation for interaction between the two campuses that are less than 7 miles apart. So we are the public universities along with CCSF in San Francisco. I think the point that I'd like to make here is that we're highly mission-driven and that amongst us we have hundreds of years of lived experience in how to navigate the often treacherous domain of science as individuals of color, historically underrepresented backgrounds, and so we share that lived experience, or we actualize that lived experience in our work on a daily basis. So we're partnering in undergraduate institutions, San Francisco State, with a premier research intensive, and have learned a lot via that partnership that I'll share. And so in the next slide, I want to talk about the fact that we've come to the understanding that in order to get institutional transformation accomplished, we need to really pay attention to convergent interests and the mutual benefits that are derived thereof. So San Francisco State, at a very broad level, can be described in this partnership as having the primary goal, and as part of the BUILD goal, to enhance the number of undergraduates or increase the number of undergraduates who go on to advanced degrees for biomedical research careers. At San Francisco State, nearly 70% of our science and math students are students of color. Those are thousands of students. And we want to partner with UCSF to meet one of our institutional goals, which is to really be the city's university in terms of serving the needs of San Francisco, especially communities of color. So the science and health needs of our communities. At UCSF, most recently there's been quite a few changes, and I'll talk about at the end of the slides that was student-driven, is to become the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive academic medical system in the country. And so they want to make sure that the faculty and the research labs reflect diversity so that they have the insider knowledge to really improve the practice of science. However, the pool size and the high cost of living is a barrier. So recruiting locally from San Francisco State overcomes that barrier. Finally, working with us, which both our institutions are considered anchor institutions in San Francisco, we can work to improve the long-term health and welfare of communities in our hometown. So we achieve these through actualization of the following goals, which are to affirm values and lived experience of students of color for improved biomedical research, to broaden student research experiences and faculty professional development with the goal to disseminate to sister institutions and drive institutional transformation on other campuses. So the activities listed here are selected from a number of activities that we're doing, because what we recognize is that institutional transformation requires multiple inputs over multiple people, over multiple ways in order to actually get the wheels to turn in a forward manner. In fact, 70% of institutional transformation efforts fail, so we want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So in terms of the first goal, what we do is we systematically affirm the giving back values of many of our students and really help them to understand the valuable assets that they bring to community health research. And so that's done by increasing the awareness of faculty of opportunities to engage in that kind of research, by providing classroom modules that include community service learning activities. In fact, community service learning has been shown to be a high-impact practice in the CSU, where it doesn't really affect the graduation rates of non-HU, but historically underrepresented students go from a 52% six-year graduation rate to a 72% six-year graduation rate. So it's something that really improves our persistence and graduation rates in these environments. And so we also provide critical research training to increase student persistence and enable them to become agents of change by cultivating their resistant capital. In terms of Goal 2, we provide diversity supplements. We work on institutionalizing diversity supplements. We just had a matchmaking event last Friday at which 28 UCSF faculty members and 33 students were in attendance. It did a little bit of speed dating, and we're expecting at least 5 to 10 diversity supplement applications to come out of that event to add to what we've already done, and I'll show that in the results. Currently this semester, we're implementing a Research with Communities course with students at San Francisco State, where individuals from that course will be selected for a shadow program of clinical research coordinators at UCSF to improve the staffing of, to increase the diversity of the staffing of clinical research trial teams, so that the expectation will also improve clinical trial participation of individuals who are normally not included in those trials, improve science as well. We also now have institutionalized an In the Mix networking event at UCSF that brings together faculty from both campuses over wine and cheese to talk about research projects that are important to both. And finally, we're disseminating to sister institutions via publications, consultations, and talk at the end of next steps about our MA² app, which is our microaggressions, microaffirmations app for smartphones. In terms of our results, we have, in terms of our individual Build Scholar program, which is a very small program, which is really an incubator for testing some of our interventions that we plan to scale out. 31% of them have applied to PhD programs straight out of the undergraduate, and then the numbers here are not very good. But what you'll see is that many of them are other programs. All of them are in biomedical research. What we have shown is that SF Build Scholars have a greater sense of science identity, sense of belonging, and science community values compared to a comparison group. And we are working, as I said, to institutionalize a pathway for many of our students to become clinical research coordinators at UCSF. In terms of faculty-centered outcomes, we have created our Faculty Agents of Change, which is a group in the College of Science and Engineering that meets regularly to discuss some of the literature around high-impact practices, and then we talk about how we're implementing them in our courses. And the goal is to become ambassador agents of change, to be able to go out to other institutions with what we've learned in our classrooms and in implementing these activities, and then getting the data to show what's working for whom. In terms of research development, I talked about that our networking events have been institutionalized, and this is the In the Mix flyer that was crafted at UCSF to draw faculty from both campuses to this event, and we have these diversity supplements. Currently, there are 47 diversity supplements at UCSF. They have 396 eligible NIH grants, and so we can certainly do much better in increasing that. 15% of the 47 supplements are to San Francisco State individuals, and we hope to increase that. Finally, I forgot to say this is our writing retreats that we do with UCSF, where we bring together both faculty and from both campuses to work on scholarly publications and grant submissions. This has been really effective in, I think, breaking some of the barriers between CSU faculty and faculty at Research Intensive. Finally, with regard to the institutional results, many of our team members engage in leadership roles to, again, affect multiple inputs into multiple projects in order to drive forward momentum for institutional transformation. We are sharing our theories of change in various ways, including 5 papers that will be on the last slide, a book that's available free on Kindle, and 68 presentations at conferences. These include presentations on addressing the threat in the air, and that's particularly stereotype threat, and coping through reflective journaling, which is an activity that came from our students. Our students who are part of our ethnic studies program really said those practices in ethnic studies have really benefited us in terms of understanding our social identity and how to cope in particular environments. Why don't we bring them into science? And that's our ALMA project. And we are broadcasting our successes through media. And one of the proven change mechanisms for institutional transformation is to get the word out about what you're doing. So in the last 2 years, we've had 17 local and regional pieces in media outlets, and yesterday I completed an interview with someone who's in Esterland who is going to be writing a piece for elementary school kids. And then finally, last 2 slides, is that we have learned that working across campuses, working across disciplines and organizations is hard work. There are logistical barriers due to silos, and there's also cultural divides and hidden rules. It seems that each institution has its own rules within the institutions. There's different practices, and then within disciplines there's the same different words to talk about the same principles. And so we need to really build relational trust, and we need to have flexibility in how we work with one another, and we need to have compassion for one another, because in this work we're going to make mistakes given all the different pieces that need to come together, and they don't always go in smoothly. Finally, we need to, one way to build all of this is to really focus on the mission. And so the mission is to enhance diversity of the biomedical research workforce, and so we can use transdisciplinary approaches because they're transformational. There's a lot of literature on that. And these results are then useful, meaningful, and impactful. One size does not fit all. So our CSU San Francisco State UCSF partnership was built on our own cultures within our university. So this is, for example, the 6-month strike that took place at San Francisco State for multiculturalism. And so we have a culture of being agents of change. At UCSF in 2014, at the beginning of Build 1, the students did a White Coats for Black Lives protest that really mobilized UCSF into thinking about how race matters. And so we have worked with the outcomes of that student-grounded work, which led to an award on their campus for the student group, to really leverage our convergent interests for mutual benefit. And here is our next steps. So this is an app that we've created because institutional transformation requires that you really understand the environments that you're working in. And so this app is for smartphones, and it collects reports from students, and it can be faculty, of microaggressions, which are defined here, and microaffirmations, which we have a paper that came out recently that describes the microaffirmation. And the idea being that if we understand what is not helpful in an environment and what is, that we can really move forward. And there's other aspects of the app, this app that I'm not going to talk about, but I'm going to give a couple of results. So for example, this is a microaffirmation that was reported by a student. The building I was in had gender-inclusive bathrooms. So this is a nonverbal microaffirmation. And it really leads to understanding that having gender-inclusive bathrooms are something we can do to affirm the students and their social identities in a given environment. This is another one that we received. In my STEM class, the instructor made eye contact. So clearly, it's important for faculty to make eye contact with all of their students and to have that relational trust that really speaks to instructor immediacy, which is the apparent social cohesion between faculty and students that really drives sense of belonging and science identity. So this will be available in fall 2020. So finally, this is our summary. We are leveraging our existing SF State UCSF partnership in Build 2 to really enhance diversity of the biomedical research by overcoming any barriers from the undergraduate to the PhD. Okay, but again, won't read the rest of it. And our MA Squared app will be available in fall 2020. And I'm happy to introduce now our colleagues at Cal State Long Beach in their CSU Build program, Kelly Young and Chia Chen.
All right, thank you, Letty, for the introduction. As one of the PIs of the CSU Build initiative, I'm very excited to introduce the Build program at Cal State Long Beach to the CSU community. For our very first webcast presentation today, we want to share with you the programs that we've developed specifically for our CSU faculty mentors. All of these programs are designed to strengthen our faculty's capacity to mentor students on their research, scholarly, and creative activities. I'm joined here today by Dr. Kelly Young. She's Professor of Biological Sciences at Cal State Long Beach and has spearheaded the RISCA mentor training efforts for the Build faculty on our campus. Now, before we describe the faculty training programs, let me first give a brief description of our Build initiative. As Sue mentioned earlier, we're currently in the second phase of the initiative. Phase 1 was led by the dynamic duo consisting of Drs. Laura Kingsford and Guido Urizar. Phase 2 is now led by the Fantastic Five that consists of Drs. Jesse Dillon, Simon Kim, Panada Mariang, Kim Vu, and myself. There are 4 major aims for our Build initiative. First, we aim to promote interdisciplinary approach to health-related research on our campus, as we've brought together faculty and students from 4 colleges: natural sciences and mathematics, health and human services, liberal arts, and engineering. Second, we aim to strengthen our undergraduate curriculum with a set of new research-infused courses. This curriculum supports our third aim for undergraduate research training that uses an assets-based approach. So far, we've been able to train over 300 students. About 114 of them have already applied for graduate school, with 83% having matriculated. And finally, our fourth aim focuses on fostering faculty development in culturally responsive RISCA mentoring. Our presentation today focuses on our work on faculty development. We're very excited to introduce you to 3 mentoring programs that we've developed so far. The Build Mentoring Community, or also called BMC, Advancing Inclusive Mentoring Program, also called AIM, and the Multicultural Workshop Series. I will now hand it over to Kelly, who is really our mastermind behind the BMC and AIM programs. And then I will finish our presentation with the multicultural workshops and other upcoming student training related resources that will be available to the CSU community soon.
Thanks, Gia. Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to share with everyone the research mentor training community that we've created here at Cal State Long Beach as part of the NIH Build initiative. Because the high impact practice of involving students in her research, scholarly, and creative activities is a priority for the CSU, learning those best practices for mentoring is a critical component to facilitate student success. Our Build Mentoring Community, or BMC, is a 2-semester hybrid training program that's mainly run using an online discussion group, where in the first semester, research mentors discuss topics including communicating with your mentees, promoting equity and inclusion, aligning expectations between yourself and your mentee, encouraging mentee professional development, assessing your mentee's understanding of their project, promoting ethics, fostering mentee independence, and, of critical importance, creating a tangible mentor-mentee compact that serves as the culmination of that first semester. In the second semester, mentors take what they've learned and make a change to their mentoring practice and reflect on the effectiveness of that change at the end of the semester.
Now, our BMC is based on a mentor training program that's disseminated by the National Research Mentoring Network, part of our Build Consortium. This evidence-based program is called Entering Mentoring and is written by mentoring experts, Drs. Chris Bunn, Janet Branshaw, and Joe Handelsman. But because Entering Mentoring is geared specifically for postdocs and graduate students, we adapted this program for busy CSU faculty members mentoring undergraduates and master's students. Our adaptation still meets the learning objectives of Entering Mentoring, so our faculty do receive NRNM certification for mentor training. And this is something that's important. It's something that funding agencies like the NIH and NSF are starting to look at during proposal review. So how does the BMC work? Well, each BMC cohort consists of 6 to 12 faculty members plus a faculty facilitator who leads the group. This faculty facilitator posts the weekly readings and discussion prompts, promotes discussion of the topic, and provides assistance as faculty members work on their Semester 2 project. Standout participants in each cohort are asked to serve as leaders in subsequent cohorts, extending leadership opportunities to many faculty members across campus. And all facilitators can follow a ready-to-use leaders manual, inclusive of all posts and resources that we have created here at CSULB. So how has the BMC worked so far at Cal State Long Beach? Well, to date, we've trained 93 faculty members across 4 colleges and 24 different departments. When those mentors took an end of BMC survey, nearly 74% stated that the BMC workload was reasonable. This is an important consideration if you're thinking about adding mentor training to busy faculty schedules. Beyond reasonable workload, 86% of respondents were likely to recommend the BMC to a colleague. And even more important is that 97% of our respondents said that they were likely to make a change in their mentoring as a result of BMC participation, suggesting that the BMC really added to their mentoring toolbox. We are thrilled to be able to share the BMC with the CSU system and have been delighted to work with CSU Dominguez Hills, where they're starting their own TMC, or Toro Mentoring Community, this spring. If you're interested, we would love to have you join us for a Train the Trainer session that's been initiated by CSU San Bernardino. Please let me know if you have a few faculty members who might be interested in being future BMC leaders at your campus. We start our free online Train the Trainer session February 3rd, and everyone who completes the session will receive a copy of our exclusive Leaders Manual. Finally, we're open to Train the Trainer workshops across the state. I'll end my portion with a sneak preview of our upcoming mentor training program, Advancing Inclusive Mentoring, or AIM. With the AIM program, we take material from the BMC, expand it, add in student voices, and put the entire package online. We're also working to be relevant to all faculty members, regardless of field, as well as staff members who interact with students. Faculty and staff can earn certificates of completion learning about communicating with mentees, inclusive mentoring, how to best facilitate mentee well-being, cultivating mentee growth, mentoring risk of projects, promoting ethical behavior, and creating a customized mentoring plan. So stay tuned as we continue to add to the AIM program so that every student on campus is mentored, and as a CSU mentoring community, we're all mentoring better together.
Thank you, Kelly. So, in addition to the BMC training, all CSULB Build mentors were required to participate in 2 multicultural workshops that were developed by Dr. Jose Rodriguez. Jose is a professor in communication studies at Cal State Long Beach, and he's an expert in intercultural communication. The goal of the workshop series is to improve intercultural communication skills of faculty mentors so that they can foster more collaborative relationships with their mentees. We believe that these workshops are relevant for all CSU campuses in that it can enhance the experience of inclusive excellence across the campuses by strengthening pedagogical skills and intercultural effectiveness of faculty mentors. Now, this series offers workshops on 2 topics, one on cultivating a culture of invitational dialogue and diverse mentoring relationships, and the other that's more focused on interactions and exchanges that take place in various settings, and that includes the classroom. Each session consists of a presentation on pertinent theories and research on intercultural communications, which then leads to a discussion of best practices according to the National Communication Association. And of course, we then end with interactive group discussions that are based on scenarios and active role-playing. So just like Kelly's BMC, we invite you to try out our multicultural workshops. For those of you in Southern California, you're in luck because Jose can run face-to-face workshops right here locally. For a CSU system-wide platform, he can run it as a webinar training series that is delivered online. Finally, later this spring, we will have resources for student risk of training ready for dissemination. This will include online modules that we've been developing to prepare our undergraduate students who are interested in applying for summer internships as well as for graduate schools. We will also have materials for courses that we've developed for our research-infused curriculum. Next year, we plan to have the curriculum for our undergraduate research training ready for dissemination. And lastly, we're currently developing a new survey instrument that measures culturally congruent science identity in our students. Now, this is very important because a lot of our students that come from underrepresented backgrounds in sciences feel that their identity is not quite congruent with the way that typically the science community views themselves. And that actually has implications for persistence in their pursuit of the career. So this instrument will be ready for dissemination once we complete our validation work. Finally, here's our contact information for questions about our BUILD initiative and overall dissemination efforts. Please contact me. For BMC or AIM programs, you can contact Kelly. And finally, if you're interested in learning more about the Multicultural Workshop Series, please contact Jose. On behalf of the CSU BUILD, we thank you for your time. Now I would like to introduce Patty Kwan and Gilberto Flores, who are the speakers for Cal State Northridge.
Thank you for that introduction. So I'm Gilberto Flores. I'm in the Department of Biology, and I'm here today with Dr. Patty Kwan from Health Sciences, and we're really excited to talk to you about our Build Poder program.
So I want to give you a brief overview of Build Poder. So Build Poder is founded in critical race theory, or CRT, which has many tenets all involving around racism, understanding and acknowledging the wisdom of oppressed communities, and social justice. In phase one, we have goals for students, faculty, and the institution. At the student level, we want to develop a CRT-informed training curriculum and at the same time encourage our diverse undergraduate students to pursue careers in the biomedical field. At the faculty level, we develop skills and networks to help them conduct rigorous, meaningful research with their students. And at the institutional level, our goal is to maintain BUILD or extend BUILD beyond our 10-year funding cycle and really work with our communities to reduce health disparities in our area.
Before I talk to you a little bit about our student training activities, I just want to mention that all throughout this process, we are evaluating the outcomes of our student training activities by comparing our Build Poder students to non-Build Poder students. So really, our student training program begins with our recruitment, and so we actively recruit students from our local university of CSUN, but also across 3 community colleges in the area. We actively recruit. We don't just post flyers. We have people on the ground at each of these locations to make sure that students are understanding the application process and really complete their applications. The students that we're recruiting are from 5 different colleges at CSUN across over 25 different majors. Anything really that is health related, the students will be eligible for the project. So the students begin early in their summer and through our Summer Jumpstart program, where it's really, we've developed a CRT-informed training process where students get introduced to critical race theory. They understand how to identify and overcome some of the associations with implicit bias and stereotype threats. And then they also develop certain skills that are discipline specific, depending on which major they're coming from. So this is a 4-week program that students enter in the summer, and they also go through a matching process so that when the academic year begins, they are matched with a faculty member for their year-long research mentor training and skills development. So during the academic year, students work 11 hours in a research laboratory with a faculty member that has also been trained in our CRT training. They also participate in a few different courses that we've developed depending on which discipline they're coming from, so they can learn advanced methods and different skills. We host bi-weekly meetings where we bring in speakers from both academia, industry, and other areas to really get students interested in careers in biomedical research. Throughout their training, they are demonstrating their research skill competencies through different avenues, including our local C-Symposium, which is our local forum for students to present their research. But we also have a number of students that go on to national conferences as well as generating co-authored publications with their mentors. One of the areas we're most excited about is our summer research experiences. We've partnered with a number of universities, including some local USC, UCLA, but also some out-of-state, Drexel and University of North Texas, where our students are highly encouraged to go spend a summer at these universities. And we're finding that when they come back, they're really re-energized about research careers and really getting that first taste where they're able to do full-time research over the summer. All along the process, we're also developing their skills that make them competitive for graduate school applications, and so this includes how to write a research statement, how to write a personal statement, a diversity statement, as well as GRE prep, and then, of course, graduate school advising.
So for faculty in the institution, a lot of things go on as well. In our faculty level, we basically do two things. We train our faculty to be good mentors. We also allow them to get involved in things such as early and advanced research trainings. We fund pilot projects. We have reading and writing groups where faculty dedicate hours to writing and mentoring each other. We help them write grants with trainings, and as well as we involve our pipeline partners at community colleges. At the institutional level, we do many things. Build was the catalyst for Lilac Hall, which is our first ever building on campus research solely to do research. Lilac Hall is home to the HERE Center, which is the Health Equity and Research Education Center for students, faculty, and community partners. We want to foster community and academic partnerships, and in that we do things such as asset mapping, research, and policy work. Our first in the San Fernando Valley, and our first project actually is the African American Infant Immortality Project, and we're excited about that.
In terms of some of our outcomes to date, thus far we've trained 197 students through our research project. Of those, 107 have earned their BA or BS from CSUN. Some of the areas we're most proud of are 2 of our students have been awarded NSF GRFP fellowships, and another 7 are in postgrad NIH fellowship programs. In terms of where our students are at now, so of the 107 that have graduated, 61 are in postgrad programs, so this includes PhD, master's, and some professional programs, including MD. We do have 7 working in research positions in industry or academia. We do have 14 that are really evaluating their priorities and determining if they want to head down this path for academic research, and so they're taking what is termed a gap year.
At the faculty level, there's many results, as you can see up here, but up to date we train over 120 different faculty members across 5 colleges, as well as our partners at the community colleges. In the 4 years of training, we've trained faculty to be good mentors through a 16-hour entry training. Yearly, we meet with them to understand application, to understand institutional racism. We talk about cross-cultural communications, microaggression, as well as we end that with Theater of the Oppressed, which is an interactive activity where faculty really get to express and learn from the students. In fact, in an 18-month period, we have 78 different faculty members generating 34 manuscripts and lots of conference papers as well. Thus far, we've funded 8 pilot projects, 5 of which have been awarded, and their average award is about $400,000, and most of it are NIH grants. In past June, we've had a June Writing Intensive group, and as you could see, lots of papers and chapters have been published from that. We've learned a lot from Build Poder and all the activities that we've done. I want to highlight just a few of them here. The first thing I want to talk about is that scaling up is really possible. We could make a large program such as Build Poder be successful and feel small. Our Build trainees, our students, are trained in critical race theory, and they have a strong sense of science identity, science self-efficacy, and they're committed to careers in science compared to non-Build students. And in fact, we have a paper coming out that describes this in detail. I think coursework and real-world community issues are a good forum for biomedical researchers. And because racism is ubiquitous but yet silent, Build Poder will continue to offer anti-racism classes on campus. What's really neat is that with institutional support and administrative buy-in, we're able to create buildings like Lilac Hall and have our 4 cluster hires in psychology and health sciences.
Some of our next steps include developing our student trainings into modules. So these will include both in-person kind of train the trainer, facilitator guide type modules, but also some developing online student training modules. We're also trying to find new ways to engage the families of our students, primarily because we are seeing some parents really hesitant to let their students go away for summer and then ultimately for graduate programs as well. In terms of our next steps for faculty training, we are currently developing a module to look at power in one's research laboratory and see how even the way we set up our research laboratories could be a barrier to some students. Institutionally, we're really focused on developing these community academic partnerships through our HERE Center that Patty mentioned. Ultimately, that will lead to potentially SBIR, STTR type NIH grants and publications as well.
So in summary, I just want to say that Build for Dare is successful because we bring people together as a community, and I think that's really key. Our students feel empowered to explore careers in the sciences and develop their science identity. Large programs, like I said before, can definitely work thanks to dedicated and passionate leaders like Gabriela Chavarria and Alina Adamian, who work with students one-on-one, are tremendously passionate. They have the pulse on all of our students. Institutional faculty and student energies can be brought up and really bring the build effect to CSUN as well as our communities. We're making really 3 large investments in our future, one of which is the K-12 program spearheaded by Alina Adamian and Cindy Malone from biology, where they've worked with over 500 middle school students on experiments with highlights in health disparities implications. The HERE Center, like I've mentioned, will sustain training and research opportunities well beyond build. We're also working on disseminating our work through publications, conferences, creating online training modules, which we hope to share with others at CSUN as well as other CSUs. And all of this hopefully to keep the efforts of Build for Dare very much alive.
So we thank you for your attention and would also like to acknowledge our funding sources at the NIH. And if you have any questions related to faculty mentor training, I would encourage you to contact Dr. Carrie Sattermo in psychology. Any questions about student training curriculum, Dr. Gabriela Chavarria, also in psychology. And then regarding any of our evaluation and kind of more the institutional level, Dr. Patty Kwan in the health sciences. So now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Frank Gomez, who will handle our Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty, Gilberto, and certainly all of our speakers today. The BUILD program and everything we just heard over the little less than an hour is quite impressive. And I'm very excited about all of your great work and how it's impacted our students and certainly is building capacity. We have a few minutes for Q&A right now. One question I have is, it certainly is quite opportune that 3 out of 10 of the BUILD grants were given to the CSU. Can any of you, all of you, comment a little bit on the benefits of that and how that is making a positive impact within the CSU system?
Sure, Frank. I would be happy to talk about that from what I believe is the national perspective. I think that there were a couple of things going on with NIH in terms of why they thought of taking the program in this direction. As you know, normally because of their medical focus, they have tended to focus on funding R1 institutions, although of course they are always providing some funding for comprehensive institutions such as ours. But this major national effort was a recognition that most of the underrepresented students, in fact, are receiving their education at institutions such as those in the CSU, where 70% of our students, for example, are students of color. Second thing I think that they were recognizing about the state of California and why we had 3 out of the 10 given in the whole country is that not only are we the most populous state in the country, but we are the most diverse state. In fact, we're a state where whites are no longer the majority. The so-called underrepresented populations are the majority. This is the future of demographics in our country. So in order to have this program be successful on a national scale, it needs to be successful in California because we represent really the future of the country and that sort of diversity. And then finally, I would emphasize the multi-campus effort and the fact that we have nice coalitions not only and collaborations within the USC, but between USC and the UC system in particular, the two very large public systems in the state, as well as some with other institutions such as USC and so on. So I think from the national perspective, that's one of the reasons that that has happened.
Thank you, Sue. Another question is now that NIH has eliminated funding of some of the student training programs that have existed on the CSU campuses for decades, what lessons can be learned in BUILD that can be used to recover some of that NIH funding for student training going forward? Let's see. I know, Letty, you've been quite involved in student training programs for years. Can you comment on that?
Sure. And I'm sorry I went over earlier. The presentation wasn't that exact. Anyway, what I do know is that NIH has issued some RFAs currently that require the partnering of research-intensive universities with CSU-type universities. And I think that if NIH continues to do that, and they look to, we're set up to work on that. What's important about that is that when you have a CSU-type institution partnered with a research-intensive, you gain better understanding of what the barriers are. So when our students do not get admitted to PhD programs, we're thinking, oh, it's because the UCs don't pay attention to our students in the way we think. When the UCs don't, when they don't survive in UCs, we think it's because there's a bad environment there for our students. But then across institutions, once we work it together, we see that it's not any of those things. It's really a lot of other complex problems that we can address together. If we're working in silos, we're going to continue to have this disconnect between training in our kinds of institutions and training in research intensive.
Great, thank you, Letty. And I know this was alluded to in a number of the presentations today where you referenced interactions with other CSU campuses that you're collaborating with, all three of you. But for those, say, that were not listed in today's presentations, what support can the BUILD programs offer if those other campuses would be interested in adopting some of those training programs or workshops within the CSU system?
So, I mean, this is why we have BUILD 2. So BUILD 2 is really to, NIH really recognizes that there has to be more concerted effort for dissemination. And we have received substantial funding to make our dissemination work. So, for example, as you've heard during our presentations today, we're providing our program materials available for dissemination. We have prepared training manuals that can be readily shared with interested institutions and programs and centers. And Kelly is running free trainer-trainer sessions. I mean, this is something we'll have ongoing for the next few years. And those of you who are interested, you can just reach out to us, and we can provide technical support, provide you with the training manuals, and there are other ways that we can also explore together to make the dissemination work for your particular needs. There are also other kinds of grant opportunities, I'm sure, that we can pursue to make the adoption of these programs more viable and feasible.
Okay, great, thank you. And lastly, if a program's interested, and this is of course for Patty, if a program's interested in your CRT faculty mentor and student training module, who can they reach out to going forward? I think this is addressed to Patty.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, you're free to reach out to any of our BUILD team members. We're a very tight-knit team, so if you ask one, we will connect you with the other. But to be more specific, for anything related to faculty, you may contact Dr. Carrie Sattermo or myself, Patty Kwan. For anything related to students, it will be Drs. Gabby Shavir or Gilberto Flores right here.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank all of our speakers for presenting on their BUILD projects today. It really is a testament, all these programs, for they're very exciting, and it really demonstrates all the great work that's happening here in the CSU. You know, moving forward, STEMnet is particularly interested in partnering with campuses, especially those who are interested in submitting proposals, where the collaboration with STEMnet will strengthen the project going forward, thereby increasing the potential for funding. So I certainly hope you found this webcast interesting. FYI, next Thursday at 10 o'clock, we'll be having another webcast and course-based undergraduate research experiences, so you still have the opportunity to register for that. You can contact either myself at fgomez@calstate.edu or Monica Alacon at malacon@calstate.edu for further information. So until next time, I appreciate you tuning in today. Have a great day.